Hi there. Welcome to Women Who Boss Up. And my name is Tam Luc. I'm so excited to have you here. Today, we're going to be talking about starting over after divorce. I know a lot of people have dealt with this in their life, and I'm really excited today to have my two guests, Karen Mead, CEO and founder of Karen Mead Organizing. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Tam.
And I'm so excited as well to have CEO and founder Jennifer Blair from Escavive. How are you, Jennifer?
I'm great. Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Today, like I said, we're going to be talking about starting over after divorce because I know it's a really tough time for a lot of people when they're starting over, they're entrepreneurs, they're having all these different difficulties in their life, and to stay focused on their business is very challenging. So I'm going to start with Karen, because I know you have been through divorce in your life. Tell me a little bit about your experience.
Well, my divorce is still pretty recent, Tam. It's about 2 years now. And like everybody, it's a very difficult thing to navigate through life. And when you are an entrepreneur and running a business and have the pressures of that, it really can kind of double up. And then I have children involved. So that's like the perfect storm of stress and difficulty. And with divorce, there's the emotional side, which is really difficult to navigate through for anybody. There's also the financial side, which is difficult as well. So I know for myself, because this is more recent, I've tried really hard on the emotional end. I tell myself a lot throughout the days and weeks, I just say the word learn. What can I learn about that experience? What can I learn about how we co-parent? What can I learn about how to heal and forgive and start being kind to myself? I think that's been really key for me. And then on the financial side, running your own business is difficult enough if you have a safety net and a support system. But when you're going through the divorce and you lose the safety net and you have to start over finding a support system and maybe you didn't have one to begin with, it's a lot for someone to take on, for sure.
Yeah, it is very difficult. I remember when I first met you, and you had, I think it was very, very new, and you were still, trying to figure that all out. But what I've noticed about you, just knowing you for about a year, I think we've known each other almost, you have blossomed. I think you've been an entrepreneur for a very long time.
Yes, I'm on my 12th year of having my own business. So, but having the business was one of our weak links in our marriage. And when two people have two different visions going forward of how your life is going to look together,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, things, build up like resentment and communication stops.
Yeah.
And those are horrible things and really difficult things to chip away at. And when some of those feelings and emotions come into play, then one or both people are trying to reassess and look for a way to change the anger, resentment, and no communication. So how can you change that going forward so that doesn't happen again?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a really tricky situation because, I have the same experience, and we'll talk more about it. But, I was in a relationship the same way where maybe the expectation wasn't set early, maybe the understanding of what it looks like to be an entrepreneur and how much time and attention needs to go into that. It was just, I think, communication and understanding and respect. And I've learned a lot from that, now, but it took some time. Jennifer, what about you? Tell me a little bit about your experience.
Oops.
Sorry about that. Your experience in life after divorce.
Well, thank you, Tam. I come from a little bit different perspective in that I have been divorced for almost 20 years, and very different experience from Karen in that it's not as recent. And when I went through my divorce, I was not an entrepreneur. I did not have a business. I was actually a stay-at-home mother. I had two very small children. They were 5 and 7 when I made the decision to divorce. My marriage had blown up a couple of years before I actually made that decision. And I spent those 2 years really diving into therapy and trying to work on the marriage and learn the skills I didn't have to honestly keep my family together. So I'm sharing that because I think no matter, divorce is tough, no matter in the best, if you want it, for anybody who perhaps wants that, whether you want it or don't want it, it's difficult for everyone. And so I did make the decision to divorce after 2 years of really giving it a lot of thought. And one of the biggest reasons I made that decision was to come back to myself. I think that, I was one of those people. I came from Texas, I moved to Kentucky, quit my job, love conquers all, had a family. And so I was a stay-at-home mom, community volunteer. And honestly, looking back on it, I think that we didn't have the tools. We didn't have the communication skills that I think were needed to be able to express what wasn't working. And so it was, when I made that decision, part of that was two things. One was to come back to myself, but I also did not make the decision to divorce until I could do it without being an angry, bitter, divorced woman. I did not want to carry that into what I was going to create. I also saw divorce as an opportunity to create a great life, no matter what that looked like. I didn't know that I would start a business. I did indeed start a business, specifically based on my experience. It really led me to starting a business, to becoming a coach and working with, people of any issue, but especially women, to help them feel more empowered, more authentic, give them skills. But I think the divorce was very, it was one of those, I had no idea what I was doing. It was like, I will just get myself empowered. I'll get myself strong. I will heal. I'll do everything I have to heal, be there for my kids, and go forward and create whatever that looked like. So I had a huge determination around it, but also did it from a very big place of authenticity, a very strong spiritual life. I created a very strong support system. I love what Karen said about the importance of support systems. I think we need it for everything we do in our life. So yeah, it was a chance to start over and create something very different for life. Again, my children were little, and I did not want to make that choice at the beginning of that journey and process. But I will say now that I think it was absolutely the best decision. And I know we'll talk more about co-parenting and things like that in the show, but it ended up being, I think, the best decision for everyone, including my children. So.
That's so good. I remember talking to you, and I think you had one of the most powerful stories around divorce and around your realization of women, in your situation, where you were very active in your community.
I was, Tam, you're exactly right. At the time my marriage blew up, I was on the board of several community organizations, such as our Science Center. I was involved in the Art Museum, but the biggest role I had was I was president of the Junior League of Louisville, and that was the 1,000 women that I was responsible for. And so I was going through all this turmoil in my marriage, but had a very public persona out there in the world. So I looked the part. I would go show up at meetings and stand at a podium and look out at the sea of women. We had, 1,000 people in our organization. And I would be talking about community projects and raising money for breast cancer awareness and all these great things we were doing. And I remember having this very defining moment where I stood up there and I thought, how many other women are going through what I'm going through that are sitting there suffering in silence? And for whatever reason, we don't feel like we can talk about this with each other. I couldn't stand up and say, hey guys, I'm your president. We're gonna keep going, but my life is falling apart and you have no idea because I look the part so well. I felt like I was a phenomenal actress at the time of really being able to show up and stay committed to what I had chosen to do in that community. But I would be running from a community meeting to my therapist to the divorce attorney to a committee meeting to let's go volunteer and a day, basically called done in a day, and work in the community. So I felt like I had this very almost split life. And part of my divorce was really kind of taking that mask off and going, okay, here's what's really going on with me. And I remember my last day as president, or our final meeting, I actually filed for divorce 2 days later. So yeah, I had a lot going on, and nobody knew about it in Kentucky. Now my family and friends back in Texas, I could talk to them about it because it was far enough away, across the state lines, and it wouldn't get to Kentucky. I had one person I told here, and that's another thing that for anybody listening to this program is that the real importance of being witnessed and supported and asking for that support. I love that we're talking about this because I think women need to support women, especially in situations like this.
I so agree. And I think that, like I said, your story is so great about this. And I know a lot of people are suffering in silence and they're trying to figure it out. You have kids, and you just knowing that you have other women out here that are experiencing the same thing and have gotten to the other side, and I don't think any of us are raising the flag on divorce. I don't think any of us really are saying that you should get divorced, but it happens, right? It happens. So, but let's just jump into some of the questions, because I know some of the women in this Women with Vision International group have questions for us. And so I'm going to read a couple, and then we're just going to kind of tackle them. So the first one is, she wants to ask about honing in on qualities. Okay, so this was Katrina Reed. So she says, honing in on qualities of a strong woman that has her succeed. This is such a good question. But fail in love relationships. And then the other part of this, and how to turn those qualities into succeeding at both business and marriage. So who wants to jump on that one first?
I will. I'll go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So I think some qualities that I think about as far as being strong in business for myself, that hopefully I'm sure others can relate to as well, really is having that down in the gut belief in yourself. When you feel like no one else close to you, family, friends, whoever that may be, spouse, client, whoever that is, when no one else is able to verbally or emotionally support you, you have to bet on yourself every time. And of course, there are very difficult days to do that. Impossible. But one thing I've started is telling myself in the morning when I'm still lying in bed is it's going to be a good day. Like that carries over into personal as well. Like just having that mindset, and even if you're not feeling like it's going to be a good day, telling yourself it's going to be a good day. I also say a lot of times that the work that I do, my business really hurt my marriage, but my clients have really saved my life. And that is more than they even know. I think that it's difficult, like we said, but carrying the strength over in your personal life to believing in yourself. But also, we spoke a little bit earlier, all three of us did, a little bit about forgiveness. And carry that little bit of softer side, which I know, running a business is serious. I feel like I have a scowl on my face most of the time because I'm so serious about doing this and helping others. But I need to carry that soft side over and learn how to breathe and relax and be kind and be a good listener instead of always being the one speaking, to listen to what others are needing so that that can in turn make me feel a little bit stronger in myself as well.
So good. So good. I love that. And I have learned that same thing, Karen, around um, learning how to be use the masculine energy in my business, but you cannot use the masculine energy in your marriage. It's a completely different thing. You have to be able to flip that. And that's the thing about women. We have to know when to use it and when to, like, men are not going to respond well when you're dealing with two men in the house like that.
And I will say, I really sucked at that.
I think a lot of us do.
Say it. I did. And I was parenting at the time. When I started my business, my youngest was 6 and my eldest son was 8. So, 12 years later, here we are. But between being the best mom you can be and running a business with then 10 employees, I did not do a good job of making any time, energy, effort, love, affection left over for my ex-husband. I was not good at turning off that maleness.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good lesson. I had to learn that. It took me too long to learn it. Took me too long. Jennifer, what about you?
I agree with everything that Karen has said, but I also think that you said something kind of at the end I want to focus on, and that's that believability piece. Strong women succeeding in business, I think the people who really are strong succeed. They have this really strong belief and determination that they will succeed, and that believability. I think sometimes I've seen over the years, especially coaching women, they seem to not carry over that same believability that they can have love and that they can have this wonderful relationship. So as much as you are strong in your business and you have this belief and determination, I think you have to also believe that you can have love again, that you can have a strong and healthy relationship. And then I think the other piece of that I would say around strong women is that strong women also can be vulnerable and can create connection. And so I think it's that vulnerability and that connection that we, at least in my business is built on connection. I know that it's also built on vulnerability with being real to the people I serve. And so to carry that over into relationships, I know that I have done that over the years. Post-divorce, I've seen the difference in being able to connect, be vulnerable, to ask for what you need, what you want in a relationship, just as we ask for things in our business all the time. And then somehow when we get into our personal relationships, we kind of get small again. So I think it's staying big, but I love what you said, but as a feminine woman with that female, soft, beautiful energy and doing it in a way in which does not shut down the other person. So it's how I like to say it's a little bit of a dance. It's learning how to dance on the dance floor, whether the music is going fast or slow, meeting them where they are on that.
Yeah, so true. And I also want to, one of the things that I have learned is that female energy is not a weak energy. It's a very strong energy. I would even say it's the stronger one to me, in my mind. But it's because it knows how to attract.
Absolutely. And I think if you think about women, we create. We were made to actually create, to have children. So we already know how to have that energy, to have that strong female energy of creation.
Yes.
That goes with that, to attract and to create. And I agree with you 100%, Tam. It is completely it is a very strong energy, but it is a female energy.
A female energy. And so, girl, I had to learn it. I had to learn it because I was an entrepreneur in my first marriage. I was a bull. I was using the same kind of energy that I worked in my business. And I felt like, let me just show you. You don't get it. Let me just show you. And I just kept going. And I wasn't giving him a lot of extra time because he didn't get it and he wasn't supportive. Right. So then I said, well, all you got to do is see it. So I just kept powering forward just to get there faster, which meant less time for him.
Right.
So because I wanted to show him, and it didn't work, and this time I almost screwed up again. But what I learned is now my husband works with me, which is great, right? And it took a minute, but I really had to bring him into the understanding, because before I just said, well, he doesn't get it. He's not an entrepreneur. He's, in other words, he's kind of dumb, and that's kind of how I was thinking. He's not an entrepreneur, so he's a little dumb. And I was treating him kind of that way too. Not saying it, but kind of treated him that way. This time I brought my husband into the fold. I tell him everything. And the reason why my company is called Deluxe Life, because we are the Lux and this is our life. So I had to bring him in. He knows everything about everything. He's in. And because he's in and he's a part of it, he doesn't feel left out. And so we have a beautiful relationship. And now it's a straight up partnership, lovers, friends, business partners, every single thing that you can say as a partner, he's in. And it took a minute for me to figure that out. And I think you do the same thing with your kids. If you bring your kids in, they have to be partners in it too, because if you are just busy and you're not giving them your time, then you're going to have another problem.
I want to say something to that point. Back when you said, when you're just being strong, I know what I started to do. When the communication breaks down, I found myself becoming very resentful and angry and bitter. And then instead of me trying to talk about it or him trying to talk about it, we just avoided it. It was the white elephant in our marriage for years. I mean, really, I could say pretty much from me starting my business in 2008. So it was a white elephant in our marriage for 10 years. It's really difficult to really, I felt for me, and everyone may not agree, I could have done better. I could have gone further. I could have been more successful had I felt like I had that support. And that to me is where still a lot of my sadness, still stems from, is just, what if? It's hard. I'm tearing up.
It's something that you say that, because I 100% agree with that. Like when I was in the first marriage, I felt like if you would just get it, if you would just understand where we come from, just support me, everything happens for a reason. He wasn't the right partner for that. And I could have done way better in communicating, but I think at the end of the day, he wasn't the right partner for that. That's not what his expectations were of me or of a wife. And that's okay. He's not a bad person. He's a great dad. But in this time, I was scared. I did it again, picked another partner that wasn't right for that. But he turned out to be the perfect partner for it. I just needed to really educate him and be compassionate and meet him where he was. And he loved me so much and supported me so much. That was the other piece, that he wanted to understand, and he wanted to be with me. So then that meant, okay, let me just slow my roll, and trust him. And even though he wasn't an entrepreneur naturally, he sure enough has learned, that's for sure. Yeah. So it takes a minute. Yeah. Okay. So let's jump into this last part. Because that was such a good question. I think that encompassed a lot of what we were talking about. Let's do one more question though, and we'll kind of like move through it fast. So Monica Williams asked about co-parenting, and man, I could say I have not been the best at that, but I know Karen, you have some experience with co-parenting. So how did that go for you?
Actually, my children were older. Our youngest son was 16 and our eldest son was 18, and they have a solid foundation from both of us parenting, while we were married individually and co-parenting when we were married. So they have I feel like they have a pretty rock solid foundation. And because they were older, we were able to have pretty darn honest conversations with them, so that we didn't want them really making assumptions about what happened. And so we were both very straightforward and honest. And I feel like that set a very good tone for the four of us actually to be moving along forward into the future. My ex is, like you said, Tam, he's a great guy. Like, he's a great guy and he is a great dad. And so co-parenting for us, as it's winding down, because now our youngest is going off to college in a few weeks. I was going to say months, but weeks. That co-parenting is going to look different now. They're both going to be, and both of our sons are going to be in college together. They're both going to be in Dallas. And, we thankfully get along very well. And I appreciate his now communication style and keeping up with, while these last 2 years our son has still been home going between the two of us. I really do appreciate him for the work and honesty and support he's put in to co-parenting with me. I'm very grateful.
Awesome. Well, I know Jennifer, when she got divorced, your kids were little. So you had a different experience than Karen or I, because my son was like 6.
Right.
So Jennifer, how was your experience?
So yes, it was a very different experience in that, first of all, the way I want to answer this is I made a very conscious decision. Because I took 2 years to make the decision to divorce, I came to the divorce already having practiced forgiveness and compassion. And so my goal was, we have to work together for these children. My children were 3 and 5 when the marriage blew up, and 5 and 7. So they were very young. And so I made a decision that we're going to do this together. We're going to co-parent. And I learned better communication skills. In fact, our relationship became better after we were divorced because we learned how to communicate better, which we weren't able to do in our marriage. It was not something necessarily that he went and did a lot of work on, but it came from me. It came from me really sticking with things, sticking with the challenges, trying to talk through those things, communicate. And really and truly, I think that we did a phenomenal job of showing up for our children. My children are now 24 and 26, and they have said, we now have family dinners. My ex-husband did remarry, so when he was married to his second wife, I made sure she was included in things, and I looked at us as we are one family, because my perspective was, these kids can't get enough love. So the more people that can love them and can get along and do what we need to do to raise our children together, the better off we will be. And now, sadly, his wife died a couple of years ago, but we do family dinners. We show up on Zoom calls with each other, and everybody's on there, and his family is still my family. And so we really worked to show up for our kids. We never made them choose, for instance, who are they going to celebrate their birthday with? I mean, we had a schedule, but we never made them choose. We said, okay, it's your birthday. Where do you want to go to dinner? How do you want to celebrate? And we will both be there. We made sure that if one of our children wanted to spend time with the other parent, we didn't necessarily stick to the schedule, even though we had a schedule, because we listened to our children. We also made decisions together and made sure that when one of us said, no, you can't do that, and then as children like to do, they'll call the other parent and say, hey, can I do this? Because they kind of learn that maybe one will let them do something the other one won't. We really tried to honor each other's initial decisions around that, and not let our kids. I used to say to my kids, I said, have you not figured out that your dad and I actually talk? And have you not figured that out? And they finally got a clue around that after a few years. But I think we just worked really hard at it. In fact, I've approached him at times and said, let's write a book together to show two different perspectives of what this could look like, because I do think we did it very unusual. My daughter's even said to me, she just graduated from college last year. She could not believe the number of her friends that would go home from college and would have to choose which parent are they going to go see. And she said, Mom, people's parents don't get along. I don't understand that. And so, we made it as seamless as possible, and still also honoring the divorce and our need to separate as well.
So good. I mean, I think a lot of people could learn from that. I know I have some work to do in that area. That's for sure. We do our best, and we do co-parent. We do almost like a straight up 50-50. He spends just as much time with his dad and their family with me and my new husband. And I think that he's getting that. Ours is a little different though. My ex-husband was Japanese. My new husband is Chinese. And so he's like, and I'm African American. And so he's just like doing everything. Okay. Just so you know.
Like it's a much more expansive perspective, getting to experience different cultures and those backgrounds. It's going to make
much. And then between me traveling all over and doing all kinds of extra stuff, it's fun. It's funny. But okay, this has been so good. So there's going to have to be one last part we'll do, and we'll talk about self-care. And I am such an advocate for women taking care of themselves. So I would love each of one of you to share what you do for your self-care. I'll start really quick so you guys get an idea. I have, my husband just got a massager, a handheld massager. Every single night, we take turns massaging each other's neck and back. Mm-hmm. And that's been a new thing that we got just, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and we love it. And the other thing I do is I walk every single day. So I usually do either between 2.5 to 5 miles every single day. And that's been, I've been doing that for months now. And it makes a huge difference as an entrepreneur, as a woman, as I need my moment, I need time. And I don't take the dog with me. No, because I need a moment from everybody.
Love that.
What about you, Karen?
So I have found I do a lot of things, but the one thing I have found that is the easiest to do anywhere I am. Like I can't always get out and walk. I can't always sit and meditate, but I do those things. And I love to read, but you can't always just do that. But the one thing I can do no matter where I am is I do a lot of breath work. I do a lot of breathing. I can do it in my car. I can do it anywhere. No one even has to know I'm doing it. And it can instantly, I feel like it just really grounds me. And it doesn't take long. I mean, literally 2 to 3 minutes of I do my similar pattern. I breathe in for 7. I hold for 7. I breathe out for 7. And I do nothing for 7. And then I repeat that.
Yeah.
I mean, just doing that a set of 4 to 5 times is a few minutes of breathing and breath work. And it helps me immensely.
Yeah, that does help. That's amazing. What about you, Jennifer?
I wanted to speak to Karen real quickly on her breathing. I don't know if you have an iWatch, but there's a breath app on it. And you hit the button and it kind of vibrates in for 7, out for 7. And it's this great pattern that you can, so when I'm getting stressed, sometimes my watch will go off and say, you need to breathe. And then you hit the app and it walks you through that breath work.
That is
So
awesome.
I did not know that. It sounds like I need a little retail therapy, and I need to get that.
it is a great tool. Yes. So yeah, you're welcome. So I am like both of you that I try to walk every day. I do breath work. I meditate. The one thing that I come back to is always journaling and writing. I always feel like I can work it out on the paper. And I don't feel like I need to set aside a huge amount of time, but I have my journal handy. I can grab it. I can do 5 minutes of just getting it all down on the paper. And I think that's a great way to sort of assess where you are, to record where you are. I've been journaling for about 22 years. And so I have journals for that length of time, and it's a great process. And one other thing I want to say that I do, I'm not doing it as much right now, but when we were talking earlier about the masculine and feminine energies, when I got divorced, I took up salsa dancing. I took up all the Latin dances, and I got to the point where I was dancing 4 nights a week. I would pick my children up from school. We would go to the dance studio. They would sit and do their homework. I would practice. But what I loved about it, and I still go back and do it occasionally, I don't do quite as much as I did, it really helps you understand that male and female, masculine and feminine energy. So you have to meet your partner. It's a good way to learn to reconnect with a partner, how to show up strong but vulnerable, how to connect and disconnect. So for anybody who's interested in dancing of any form, I think dancing can be the greatest self-care thing you can do. Even if you can't go and do it in a studio with a partner, put some music on. And I have music all over my house, and I love putting on music that I can kind of dance around the house too. So between journaling and dancing around the house, those are my 2 things I love. And Pilates.
So good, Jennifer. It's so good. I love dance. I used to do salsa dancing classes too. It's a great exercise, a great way, and does show the dance between the masculine and feminine energy for sure. Well, ladies, you guys have been so amazing. I hope you all have gotten a lot out of this conversation. I mean, as you can see, we can go on and on. There's so many other things that we could bring up about starting over after divorce. But you too can, have a great life, do what you want, get stronger and stronger. And definitely make sure you check out our new book coming out, Women Who Boss Up, which will be coming out really soon in August. And we look forward to your comments and questions if you might have them. Thank you, and have an amazing rest of your day. Bye.